Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Today we're going to be talking a bit more, once again, about Mage the Ascension. In this particular case, I'm going to run down what I consider to be the top 9 traditions and conventions. They're not going to be in any particular order past just the concept that I'm just lumping these all together as the best of the best. When you get down to the nitty-gritty details, which one is better than the other past this point is kind of a case of what exactly it is that you're looking to accomplish with your character or NPC from one of these various factions. I'm going to start off, though, with the traditions, putting 5 in the list. And the topmost of which is obviously going to be the Order of Hermes. They're the most mage faction of mage. Your classic, Society of the Golden Dawn type, Aleister Crowley style mages. Very ordered and a bunch of different sub-houses. That they are, if arguably, the dominant tradition, or at least have been in the classic mage setting. Personal thought was, upon seeing the sequel game, Mage the Awakening, in many ways that game just kind of felt like, oh, this is just an all Order of Hermes game. Kind of, the way that Magic and the sub-factions of mages were presented in that game. And this one, the Order of Hermes, just one amongst many. But, they are like the quintessential, pun intended, group of mages amongst their traditions, and so you cannot not put them on this list. I would also include the Dream Speakers as being somewhat at another end of that spectrum. There is a universality to Dream Speakers because of the wide amount of different kinds of cultures that kind of feed into that belief paradigm that Dream Speakers can emerge from. And also, because they are focused so much on the spirit world of the various mages, they are very compatible with a lot of the other White Wolf games, and very much in particular Werewolf, because they draw so much of the same mythology from Werewolf spirit world mythology. Although Dream Speakers are also capable of passing into the Dark Umbra, so that they can interact with the forces going on in the Wraith game. And Dream Speakers dreaming, they should also have the ability to be Fey adjacent, shall we say, for people who want to bring a little changeling the dreaming into your mage campaign, or if you're doing just some sort of World of Darkness free-for-all grab bag kind of campaign. And the Dream Speakers are good for that because they're a nice point of interaction between different types of supernatural being. Following that, I'll add the Acacic Brotherhood. They're your martial artist magician, steeped in Eastern mysticism, chi, and alignment of the chakras, and all that kind of stuff. Their martial art is like the original martial art, kind of. They just practice Do, not Taekwondo or Judo or Jeet Kune Do. They just practice the fighting art of Do. Kind of a gimmick going on. Their specialty is the sphere of the mind, reaching out and, either agitating or calming or reading the thoughts of others and all that kind of stuff, and their own internal mental mastery. But of course, all mages are able to explore all different kinds of magic. It's just each tradition and convention is associated with one in particular, but it's not like your individual character's stuck with only being able to be a telepathic martial artist. In fact, like the Acacic Brotherhood does not have to be a kung fu character. It could just be any character that's studied in any form of Eastern philosophy as their basis for how they just work their magic. So this could also include like alchemy and other kinds of things from that end of the mythological spectrum on Earth. I'll put Sons of Ether on the list. They're a personal favorite of mine. They're your steampunk mages. They used to be a technocratic convention, but their beliefs and the etheric winds of space and all that kind of stuff, and a few other kind of quaint, archaic ideas about nuclear death rays and other things from old Victorian era science fiction, kind of just fell to the wayside, and instead of dropping their theories and just readjusting to, the stuff being promoted by the other technocratic conventions, they were like, fuck you guys, we like our steampunk goggles and, ether sensors and, void ships and shit. And so they went and joined the conventions, and they're quirky, and they fit in well, much like with the virtual adepts and the other technocrats. Sons of Ether, because they do have a technological edge to how they're manifesting their abilities, it does make it a little easier on them to come up with coincidental reasons, why their magic effects are taking place, which is very important in the Mage universe. You save your character an awful lot of time and trouble if you don't make your magic too flashy. And so, because of modern life, most of the techno-themed types of mages are going to have a slightly better time. One mild exception to that, though, is the last of the main traditions I'm going to talk about, and that's the Celestial Chorus. Because they are a more monotheistic, deriving their powers from being in tune with the universal God kind of paradigm, which is not like they're not a strictly Christian or Christianized organization. Like pretty much any kind of monotheistic, universalist type of religion is something that they will have feelers in or will have emerged from before attaining, this extra level of enlightenment, and their avatar awakens and all that kind of stuff. But because of the fact that there is still a significant portion of the human population that does believe in faith, depending on their environment, the Celestial Chorus can also pull off some effects without it necessarily engendering the same level of paradox that might otherwise be caused. Albeit, once again, that depends on who's witnessing it. If it's a mixed crowd where not everyone is a true believer and you're trying to manifest some sort of holy effect, the paradox is still going to hit because their disbelief is still going to be strong enough to override the crowd around them. But if in environments where it's just, some church or temple environment where it's purely followers of Celestial Chorus are able to manifest things that otherwise would potentially cause them damage or harm to others. So the last four are all conventions. One of them, though, is the convention that went renegade and joined their traditions in name, at least, and that's the Virtual Adepts. Possibly, of all the various types of mages out there, especially included amongst like the playable ones in the main core rulebook, the Virtual Adepts have the easiest time casting magic in their own way, because of the fact that they focus everything through computers and the internet, and thanks to the poor cartoonish presentation of how the internet works through media for the last several decades, regular average people, have kind of been trained to expect computers to be able to do things that computers can't actually do, or at least not very easily. And so, there's all manners of way where, virtual adept characters, without ever leaving their apartment, can constantly be participating in whatever's going on because they're just tapping into whatever, camera systems are nearby to see what's going on. And then they're using the internet to like, there's a fight. I better throw a lightning bolt at somebody. I'll use the internet to make a power transformer explode. And by coincidence, the arc of the lightning just happens to hit the guy that's threatening my friends. All that kind of stuff. They're great for that. But, I do feel like maybe more emphasis should be put overall in the fact that they are kind of, they've joined and they're standing with the traditions, but they are still technocrats. They don't, they're tolerant towards the pagan beliefs of the other traditions, but they don't necessarily buy into it in the way that other traditions can still kind of acknowledge the legitimacy of the philosophies of their fellows. The Order of Hermes and Dream Speakers, they might have radically different beliefs, but they're still based upon a recognition of like mind over matter magic. Whereas groups like the Virtual Adepts are going to be more in line with Iteration X and the Progenitors and all them. In terms of like having to reason your way through how to create the effect you want so that you do not incur the paradox backlash kind of way of approaching magic that the conventions have to try to put it simply. So past the virtual adepts and to the actual hardcore conventions, you have to include Iteration X. They make cyborgs. I mean, killer cyborgs. I mean, like, come on. If that's not the most like core iconic, bad enemy, threat, menace that your young mage character from the traditions will have to face, when they're first, attracting the attention of the conventions and the technocracy. Those Mark IVs and Mark Vs. Especially in the early days of Mage, before they hit the revised period where they declared that the war between the traditions and the conventions was kind of over. And the early days of Mage, those Iteration X was like a serious threat whenever they'd show up, and so it's kind of foolish not to include them. Also, New World Order, the classic government agent in the black suit and sunglasses, which, like, amongst a lot of things from the conventions, from the virtual adepts and iteration, the whole thing with the technocracy and Mage is, like, it's hard to imagine that the Wachowskis did not play this game when they were slightly younger before they had gone on to make those Matrix movies, because, good Lord, those are just basically depictions of coincidental technocratic magic, and even includes a lot of the factions. And just in the Matrix, the New World Order agents are computer programs, whereas in Mage, the New World Order agents are actually people. They're kind of the opposite of the Acacic Brotherhood. They also explore, the mind, but their whole thing is like mass programming and mass hypnosis and steering humanity onto certain narratives and social control and social programming. That's their whole vibe. They're scary, intimidating psychologists in a way. And finally, of the technocracy conventions, I'll put the Syndicate as being important. Yes, I'm leaving out progenitors and void engineers. I feel like progenitors, they're just a biological variant on what Iteration X produces for the game in terms of villainy. And the void engineers, their whole concept is to be away from Earth and exploring the outer realms, and so unless you're actually doing some sort of deep Umbra kind of campaign, they're not terribly relevant most of the time. The Syndicate, on the other hand, are the money people. Their entropy is their main sphere, and global finance is their game, and so it's... I don't know, some people seem to frame it that the New World Order is the convention that's in control of the technocracy and has the most influence over global events, but I'm of the opinion that really it should be the Syndicate. They're maybe not quite so loud about it. Maybe they allow groups like the New World Order and Iteration X and them to kind of draw attention away from the fact that, they're controlling the globe's money. I mean... and where the money flows, history follows, so to say. So, I feel like the Syndicate's probably your top dog convention, but also in a personal hand-to-hand fight or in a gameplay, they're not the most immediately threatening in appearance. They're the kind of villain that'll talk to you nicely and then leave the room and let his bodyguards fuck you up. But you're not actually going to, very rarely, if ever, actually have any sort of direct confrontation with a Syndicate villain. And that's about it. Those are my thoughts. Those are my favorite, what I consider to be the best of the various sub-factions to be found in the old classic Mage, the Ascension. Share your thoughts about what you think of some of these, or if you think I should have included one of the ones that I didn't include, and your reasoning. Also, be sure to leave me your credit card number, address, full name, and that little security code on the back. That'd be very helpful. And as always, stay waspinated.